What's good, everybody? And welcome if it's your first time viewing. Welcome back if you're returning. I'm the Nappy Dreamer.
And I'm Kia Blaine.
And we are the Melanin Mindset.
It gets better every time we do it.
Right. I think we're progressing. We're growing. We're
getting better. We're getting better at that part.
Oh, yeah. So listen, if you're not already, please go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can actually find us now at www.themelanatedmindset.live. I think that deserves an applause. Yes, it does. All right. And then also look for us on Facebook, The Melanin Mindset, Instagram, Melanin Mindset _ as well as Twitter, Melanin Mindset _ TikTok, The Melanin Mindset as well. So if you are not already, go ahead and subscribe via YouTube and turn on that notification bell. So every time we go live, you will be one of the first to know. So friend, you go ahead, and now that I officially did the thing that I do, you do that thing that you do so well.
Oh, hey y'all, how you doing? Hey Julie, I see you, girl. So today we have a special guest, and we will be talking about the financial building blocks. And if you didn't read the description, we felt as though this was necessary. Number one, we're highlighting women because it's Women's History Month?
It absolutely is.
And we're women, and we're making history, and we have people that are making history as well, and we want to highlight them. So, round of applause to all of our guests that we're having in the month of March for Women's History Month. So for today, we will be talking about financial building blocks, and we're going to start off with budgeting because, let's face it, in our community has always been kind of poor, for lack of a better word. But, with all this new technology and us going through the pandemic, Black excellence is flourishing right now. We got our hands on a lot more money. We've been doing a lot more ventures. And with that being said, sometimes when you come from one end of the perspective as far as your income to the other, it could be a little overwhelming. So we're going to start with the basics, which is budgeting. And let me go and give y'all that good old definition of budget is an estimate of income and expenditure for a set period of time. So basically, that's just you taking your income and telling your money what it needs to do for the set period of time, whether it be the month, the week, the year, so on and so forth. And we're going to have our special guest come in and help us navigate through this financial So I don't know what word I'm trying to use.
Conversation, girl. It's just a conversation.
We're just gonna be talking, and we're gonna bring in the expert to help us out so that our conversation makes sense.
Fact. So today we have our expert in the form of Quanesha James. She is the founder of Budget Smudget LLC. And we're going to bring her on for you all so that she could just tell you a little bit about who she is before we dive into tonight's topic. So y'all give it up one time for Quanesha of Budget Smudget. Thank you for joining us this evening, Quanesha. Thank you for being here.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I love doing these unexpected conversations. You never know what's going to come up, so I'm happy to just dive in. Is this the part where I'm introducing myself?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell them who you are, where you're from, what you do.
Because I worked hard for these credentials, so I'm just going to throw them out there real quick.
Okay, that's right. Be proud of them, girl.
So as you mentioned, I'm the owner of Budget Smudget. I'm an MBA. I have 2 bachelor degrees in finance, a second in financial services, with a focus in financial planning. I am a director of financial planning and analysis in my corporate life. And I have been doing all things budget for 8 years now, officially, and even longer unofficially. So budgeting is not only a passion that I have, it's something that I believe is my purpose and one of the reasons why God has me here. So I'm super excited to share my love of finance.
Yes.
Okay, y'all, she educated.
Period. She has all of the letters behind her name, so you know she is a viable resource. So Quanesha is going to be sharing with us tonight a few tips on budgeting, and then of course, we have some things that we want to talk to her about as well. So Quanesha, go ahead and get into some tips about what is budgeting. Tell them what budgeting even is.
I actually
we gave our dictionary definition. So let's
I actually really love Kia's definition. So I always say that a budget is just telling your money where to go. It's as simple as that. Sometimes we like to use spreadsheets and apps and all of this fancy stuff, but it is truly just recording where you're going to put your expenses, when they're going to come in, and it can be as simple as we need it to be.
Okay. So when we all right, so where do we start? Let's say, you know, I realize I'm making a good amount of money, but for some reason I just feel upside down in everything that I'm doing. Like, what's the first step I should take? Like, if I'm at that point where I'm just feeling overwhelmed, like I feel like money coming in, but for some reason there's always more month than money. Like, where should I start?
Mm-hmm. So the first thing I noticed that you said was if like you're making good money. And one of the things that I love to say is that you need a budget no matter how much money you make. And one of the slogans that I like to say is if it's enough to spend, it's enough to budget. More so, especially when you don't have a steady stream of income, or when you're just barely making enough to cover your bills. That's really when you want to budget, so that you can truly be aware of what you have to work with. And so the first place that you start is literally just by listing your income. My very first budget was on a napkin. I was I was in high school and I was working at C.R.O.W.N. And I literally was just jotting down like what I need to do with my $57 check. And so I just took a pen and I started writing on a napkin, like this is how much money I have. And then I'm going to give my mom $10 for gas. I'm going to do this. So a budget can literally be as simple as you got one income, you got one expense, and then you have the difference after that, right? And of course, it can be as extended as we need it to be. I believe in budgeting for every expense that you can think of, even if you aren't sure of the amount. So if you're to look at one of the items that one of the items and products that I sell is an all-inclusive budget template. So it'll have everything in there from nails and personal care to daycare to car payments to gas to groceries to spending money, birthdays, holidays. So again, we can get as extravagant as we need to get, but where you want to start is by simply listing your income, whether that's one check a month or 2 checks a month, and then jotting down those basic expenses that you know are like priority.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you said you started on the napkin. I was going to ask, so where, like, it seems overwhelming to put all of those things into their own category. But let's say that I have the basic, like you said, at Golden Corral, I'm getting $57 a week. Like, how can I get started with my budget? Like, how do I start that?
I mean, you really want to, if you're unsure of like what you need to get going, not to plug here, but again, I do sell a template, right? That's all inclusive, everything you can think of under the sun. Some of it may apply to you, some of it may not. But what you really want to do, and what I like to do, is start with order of importance, right? So like you'll always catch my mortgage or rent at the top of my budget list, and then you'll go with your lights, your utilities, your tithe and your offering. Because I am Christian, so I definitely believe in budgeting those expenses for those churchgoers. And then you want to kind of get into items that, gas is important. Groceries are important, although they vary, right? Daycare, credit cards. So again, I start with the order of most important. And once you go there, you can kind of figure out, like, once your basic necessities are covered, you can figure out what money you have to flex with. Maybe if you don't have enough to cover all of your expenses, or if you need to pick, what's going to get paid this month, let's at least make sure we have a roof over our head. So when in doubt, start with your mortgage, your tithe, and let's say a car note, gas, food, right? Those are going to be like our 5 basic
However
items.
You get around.
Right. Gas, bus, Uber, whatever that may be.
I think you need to drive home that point that that your rent is important. I don't know how many people like come across or heard of, mostly because I taught, so I had a lot of young adults, and they would be like, I'm short on my rent. But I know last week you just told me you went to a yacht party and bought new outfits and stuff like that, and like you did that before your rent was paid. Did you forget that you could end up homeless by not paying your rent?
Right.
Like, how, number one, y'all, come on, you need somewhere to live.
Definitely. That's why I said let's cover it like in order of importance. Another thing that's pretty tricky sometimes, this is a good point about starting, is dating your income and also dating your expenses. And so, like, for me personally, I'm paid bi-weekly, and technically I usually have the money ready maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before it's even due, if that makes sense. So if I know I'm only gonna get paid,
that's that advanced budgeting.
Well, you have to map it out that way, right? Because if I know I'm getting paid on the 2nd and the 15th, it doesn't make sense for me to budget my check the 15th. I mean, my mortgage on the 15th. And that means that my mortgage needs to be on the check that's on the 2nd because it's extended through the 3rd. My mortgage is due on the 3rd, right? But the only way you're going to know that and you're going to be conscious of those dates is if you write it down, especially when you get into long range planning. So I personally prepare a budget like 6 or 12 months out, right? So the dates are something that I check like 3 or 4 times. I'm super critical about making sure that that's correct, because the last thing I want to do is budget me and my husband's expenses and I got the date wrong and the lights that got cut off or whatever. So you definitely want to make sure that it's a lot less you have to pay a lot more attention to it if you don't have a steady date for payment, meaning if you're paid every 2 weeks as opposed to the 1st and 15th of the month, right? So you definitely want to make sure you pay attention to dates, right? It doesn't make sense to budget AT&T on your check for the 15th if it's due the 13th, because AT&T don't want to, your phone will get cut off. Them 2 days matter.
Yeah, they do.
In that case, you would have it budgeted on your check on the 1st. And again, it's technically 2 weeks early, but you have it there for when it's due.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So prepare.
Definitely. Yes. Like that's the biggest advantage. Well, I know we haven't got to this question. That's one of the biggest advantages of budgeting is knowing what's going to come before it comes. So if you're going through your expenses, like what's this month? This month is March. So if you're going through your budget for May and you're like, oh man, that's Memorial weekend. I got plans to go on this trip, but XYZ is due. You have a 6-week outlook that, okay, I need to work some extra hours or I need to cut back on something. So the further out you're planning, the more time you have to adjust as needed, right? Because we don't, we're building good financial habits, but we don't have an endless stream of income. And so we need to know what's coming so we can flex and adjust our plan as needed, especially around the holidays. So I budget literally everything. When Thanksgiving is coming, I budget extra dollars for my grocery budget, and I call it Thanksgiving. Because a lot of us, we spend hundreds of dollars on Thanksgiving food, right? And so that's something that we would want to budget. But I also have my baby's birthday in November. My birthday is the week before hers. So I already know just from budgeting that don't call me to do nothing extra in October or November. Okay. I got 2 kids' birthdays, my own birthday. Then you got Thanksgiving. It's not going to work out. And so budgeting gives us basically like a glimpse into the future. It gives us that outlook to know like, okay, I need to tone it down some because I didn't realize all of this was due within 2 or 3 weeks of each other.
Okay, so like when you, I guess that kind of answers my next question, because like you might create a budget and like you said, some incidentals or something's coming up and it's like you need to revisit that budget. So just to make sure I'm understanding you clearly, let's say I have a budget of dining out of $100 a month, and they say next month, which I actually have next month, is prom for my son. So now he need a little suit and all of that. So he done destroyed my little clothing budget. So now we can't eat out this month because he want to go to prom. But that's what you mean by like planning ahead. Like go ahead and look at something else that you could do without this month so that you can deal with that other expense in the next month, right?
Absolutely, definitely. And that's a good point. Like if you know that you have something non-reoccurring come up, you definitely want to plan for those as well. And like you said, it might mean reducing your eating out budget. It might mean, cutting back on gas, meaning you got to sit in the house and not drive as much. Whatever you have, right? You want to, whatever you have that's flexible, right? At some points we might have to cut back and reassess what's really a necessity and what we can do without this go round.
So how often in a month would you say you need to like sit down and look at your budget?
I don't have a set number, but I basically look at my budget almost every day. And so for that reason, my budget, I actually advise downloading Microsoft Excel. I've tried apps. They have been outdated. They have stopped updating, and then this is going to be retired, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So Microsoft ain't never going nowhere.
Yeah.
So I actually, for my clients and for myself, I budget in Microsoft Excel. And another perk of that is you can make it as complex or as simple as you want it to be. And so my favorite feature of Excel is that it goes everywhere you go.
Yes.
I have a shared document that's on my Excel app on my iPhone, but I can also pull it up on my computer, right? Because it's cloud-based. My husband, don't tell him this, he has read-only permissions. He don't know that. He has read-only permissions.
So you don't let him change nothing in that budget.
I don't want no, oops, I changed this by accident.
Yes.
It's been away for about 3 years, y'all. He don't even know it. He hop in there, look at his check, his little assignments, and he be done. So that's not a good feature.
We need that.
Right. Right. I'm like, we don't want you accidentally typing over nothing. So Excel has a lot of capabilities for me. But in saying that, the biggest feature of Excel, again, is that it goes everywhere that you go. And, when you're at the gas station pumping gas and you're like, oh, how much should I have left? You can always pull up your budget. One of the things that I like to do is, let's say I put up $100 a month or $100 every 2 weeks for gas, and I'm at the gas station, I'll usually put in parentheses, like on that line item, what I have left. And it's just a mental note for myself. So literally, as soon as I'm done pumping, I'll go deduct my little $40 and say I got 60 left. And so that's personally how I like to keep up with it. So again, I look at my budget almost daily, right? So that I can remember what I have left to spend, what I've already spent, what I started with. And so just having it on an app on my phone makes it super convenient to do.
Wow.
Okay. Now, what if I'm not as good as you? Okay, because that's intense. Now, I can't stand it. I'm not gonna say I cannot. I don't know that I am at a point.
You're gonna say that you do not.
Listen, I standing at the gas pump and I have $100 for the month for the 2 weeks for gas. And as I'm standing there and allowing it to fill up, and I noticed it was like $32.56, and then I'm gonna subtract that out of my 100 and put that off to the side. Now, what if I fall off the wagon though? What happens if I'm there and maybe I had an emergency, something come up and I had to run? Now I know there's cushions that you would build into the budget, right? For things like that, emergencies and stuff. But like, what if I go over my gas budget? How do I recover? Like, how do I get back on track if I went over gas? Because I still need to get groceries. And so that money got to come from somewhere. So how do I get back on track in the event that I throw my whole budget off?
So this is like the number one, the best thing to do is, again, preventative measures. And so even if you can't always remember to maybe write it in that moment, at the end of the day, maybe try to think about what you've spent. So the best maintenance is preventative maintenance, right? Making sure you don't, like, if you mean like you overspent by $7, we can work with that. If you overspent by like $100, that's a little bit more extreme. But being aware of what you have to spend before you go out spending is super important. That's super helpful. But if you do go over, I actually do this, and I know, I don't even know if I should admit this. I do this all the time with groceries. So like, my husband comes home, he's like, I stuck to the grocery budget. And I'd be like, you did? But like me, I see stuff on sale and I'd be like, oh, cranberry sauce was 2 for $1 and it's August.
Okay.
You don't need this in 3 months. Like, I go over the grocery budget all the time. And so what I do in those situations is it has to come from somewhere else. One of the things I leave in the budget is what I call spending money or discretionary funds. And that's money for like eating out or buying a shirt, buying a pair of shoes, whatever you want to do with it, right? It's not designated for anything but your pleasure. And so when I go over on groceries, or if I go over on gas, or if I decided to let the Lord use me and donate an extra $10 to church, that's coming out of my discretion.
Not an extra $10. Did she say $10?
That's coming out of her discretionary budget. Okay.
Every little bit helps you.
Yes.
So I take that from my discretionary funds, right? Because it has to come from somewhere. So what if I don't have any discretionary funds left? Then we're going to get into the same situation that we talked about before. It's got to come from somewhere, right? And I don't believe in overdrafting your bank account. So that's where I start plucking, right, in order of least importance. So first thing to go is my discretionary funds. The next thing to go might be the eating out money for the family. Then the third thing to go might be gas money. I can usually flex on gas, $10 or $15. It just means that all I'm doing is taking my daughter to school, going to church, and coming back home. And so whatever that might look like, another component where you can kind of flex at is if you are paying additional, like on a credit card, right? The minimums are usually like $25, $50, but let's say you budgeted $150. Sometimes you can play with that extra cushion, right? Because it was an overpayment anyway.
Okay.
And so again, I just kind of take it from somewhere that it won't be missed and that it's not going to cause any late payments or problems with.
Okay, that's awesome. So you spoke about people with irregular incomes, and like I'm somebody who has an irregular income. I'm a hairdresser, so like some months I'm booming, and then some months it's like, dang, where everybody go? So like that kind of throws my budget off on certain months. So like I guess I kind of about to answer my own question. You would go for the most important stuff first, right?
Right. And another thing that I suggest for people that are like hourly workers or people that do have inconsistent incomes is when you're creating your budget, especially on the income line, that's not the time to be optimistic. Don't be like, I usually work 37 hours, but I'm a budget for a 50-hour paycheck. No, we don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. What I suggest when you're budgeting for an income that fluctuates is budgeting down, meaning the very least that you know you're going to make that month, or the very least amount of hours that you would make. That's what you want to budget on your income line so that you're not setting yourself up for failure. What you don't want to do is
right after this.
Right. You don't want to be like, oh, I'm a work extra, and then Lord forbid another shutdown or something happen. Right. We gonna all take a hit to our budgets. And then that's when we kind of make mistakes, because again, one of the benefits of budgeting is that you see the future. But one of the places where I shortfall is I'm like, oh, I ain't got nothing in August. I got an extra $700, and then you go spend it.
I was just about to ask that.
That extra week.
I was just about to ask. Hold on, Quanesha, I gotta ask you. So you said, because you just hit where I'm headed, where I live. This is my house. You in my house now, okay? Now listen, in the event, right? You said budget down. So in the event that I happen to have an extra couple $100 that month and I budgeted down, to somebody like myself, what are we doing with all this extra money?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so
I don't think the answer is Amazon.
I feel judged. I feel targeted.
I'm gonna give you Amazon.
I feel targeted.
So it's two things. The first thing that you can do is if you see extra and that month isn't here yet, don't pull a me and spend the money, because you just never know what's gonna come up, right? So if it's March, you see that you got extra in May, don't go spend it on your credit card, telling yourself you're gonna pay it back, because 9 times out of 10 it don't work that way. And that's just personal experience. I'd be like, oh, I was supposed to spend this one. Now I really want to do this, right? So don't do that. If you are in March and your check is in March, so let's say you get paid tomorrow, and okay, I got extra $230. The answer is, let me give you first the responsible answer, right? One of the first things one of the first things I do with my clients is I establish goals and the purpose of their budgeting, whether it's home buying, whether it's paying down debt, whether it's saving $10,000. And so visibly seeing those goals in your budget, when you have extra funds, you can put it towards one of those goals, right? So that would be the first thing you want to do. But I'm gonna be honest, if I see a couple $100 extra, I'm gonna split it, right? Because I'm just gonna be fair. A budget needs to be realistic. We don't want a budget to feel like it's prison or feel like it's a punishment, because we all work hard for our money and we all, deserve it to spend it in a way that's gonna be pleasing to us. So honestly, I recommend putting half of the extra towards one of those goals, and then the other half, you can do whatever you want with it. If that means going and getting a pedicure or going and eating hibachi for 3 days straight, whatever makes you happy, sis, go buy Amazon, go buy, like, as long as you are staying within those funds. Now, when Amazon starts to exceed the money that you set up for Amazon, that's when you have a problem.
Yeah, Yeah, that's.
But it is okay to treat yourself. I definitely want to make that, like, I feel like we as a people, especially melanin people or melanated people, we sometimes can be pretty hard on ourselves. Or
we either one extreme or the other.
Exactly. Right.
We don't do it.
Don't treat ourselves, or we over treat ourselves.
Right. And so, I mean, it's super important to definitely make sure, again, that you're treating yourself. Like, that's okay to do. If you have the money, if you know that your bills are paid and you're not spending your rent money, like, have at it. That's super important. And so I definitely want to I like to say that, because I don't want us to feel like we work just to pay bills. That's one of the reasons why that keeps us from sticking to a budget. Well, I want to do what I want to do with my money, and it's hard earned, and you should just blow it. You only live once. A budget is not about not spending. It's about allocating your expenses in a responsible way. So
it's like knowing what you're spending.
And I get this question a lot. I know nobody has asked this, but I get this question of, how much is a safe amount for spending money? The answer is, if all your bills are paid and you have saved at least 10 or 20% of your check, you can spend $1,000 if you want to, right?
Money allows it.
Right. Whatever your money allows. Like, I'm not in your pockets. The only rule I have is that you should never spend on discretionary spending more than what you have set aside to save, right? So if you could save $2,000 and you want to go spend another $2,000, that's awesome. That's amazing. Do that. Like, don't let anybody limit you in your spending.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good space to pause right here. When we get back from the commercial, Quanesha, I do want to ask you about budgeting down to zero, because the way you were just saying what you were saying, you were headed in that direction. So I want to ask you about that, budgeting out to zero. You said how much are discretionary funds. So before we get into that question, though, remember, everyone, we are brand ambassadors for Deanu Apparel. So hang with us for just a moment, and we have a commercial we'll run through, and we'll be right back after that. What's good, Mindset family? The Melanin Mindset is thrilled to announce we are the newest brand ambassadors for Deanu Apparel. Deanu Apparel is a Black-owned apparel company that offers trendy African-inspired prints in each and every garment. They're offering our listeners 15% off their purchases just by using promo code Melanin Mindset. There's something for him, there's something for her, and there's even something for the kids. So head right over to Deanu.com using the description link down below, or just simply enter Melanin Mindset at checkout and save today. Thank you so much for hanging around with us through that commercial break. Remember, you can make your purchases on Deanu Apparel and save 15%. Friends, say it for me. I need to echo 15%.
15%.
15%. Yes, you can save 15% by using the promo code Melanin Mindset, or simply clicking that link down in our description below. You will save 15%. And yes, they do take, and I'm sorry, I know we talk about budgeting and properly using our money, but y'all, they take Afterpay and they take Zip as well. So if you're looking to break that down into multiple payments, maybe Quanesha can tell us how we can better do things like that. Break it down into multiple payments instead of spending all that money at one time. And I'm telling you, the prices nonetheless are actually reasonable. So feel free to check out Deanu.com, promo code Melanin Mindset, and save 15% off your purchases, clearance included, today. So before we went off to break, I said I was going to ask Quanesha about budgeting down to zero. She said people ask her all the time about utilizing or setting their amount for their discretionary funds. And she said, as long as all your bills is paid, okay, you can spend $1,000 if all your bills are paid. But let's talk about that. Budgeting out to zero. Is that why you're saying it's okay to go ahead and just spend that $1,000 if that's left over after you've paid all your bills and things like that, and put your money in savings? You've got your 20, you said 20 or 30%? 20% in savings. And then now I could just budget out the rest to my pocket. So budget out to zero.
Right. I'm not going to say to your pocket, but yes, we budget to zero. And so what that means is each dollar you earn has an assignment, right? One thing I don't believe in is just sitting hundreds or thousands of dollars in your account with no purpose, because when you do that, it can go anywhere. Like, if it's not designated for something, you'll use it on anything, if that makes sense. And so Even if it's discretionary funds, that's fine. That's money that you can do with what you want. But if it's like savings or whatever, we definitely want to move our savings to a separate account. We don't want to be able to see that. If you, let's say you make $5,000, all your expenses come to $4,000, right? You might want to have $500 for spending money, and then there's another $500 left over that, you know, you don't have to put it on a credit card. You don't need to save it or whatever. One of the things you can do is just move it to a separate checking account. I don't want to say a savings account because you have a limited number of withdrawals from a savings account, but maybe a separate checking account, or, you know, old school money under the mattress. And we'll call that a contingency fund. That's just, I got extra money this month. I don't want to necessarily spend it, but I can put it up in case something else comes up. And so what you want to be super careful with is, again, you have a savings account for money that you don't intend to touch unless there's a real emergency. Like, you shouldn't need to utilize your savings account if it's an expense less than $1,000, right? If a tire goes out and it's $160, you shouldn't need to go into your savings account for that. And so this contingency fund is for, like, I got a little extra, something might come up, not expecting it to, but I'm gonna just sit this here. Again, and the difference between a contingency fund and a savings account is that the savings, the government regulates. You can only have 6 withdrawals a month from a savings account before they start charging you fees, because it's a savings account, not a checking account. And so the contingency fund allows you access to, like, quick petty cash without penalizing yourself and your account.
Question. So what about people who use credit cards as their, like, emergency savings? Like, how do you feel about that being a thing or not?
So there is a statistic that might be a little bit outdated, but 70% of Americans did not have an emergency fund established, right? And they would depend on credit cards if something were to happen. That's not a good idea. So there are 2 things you can do with a credit card. You can use a credit card because you know you have the money to pay it off, and you want the points, but then again, you're going to pay it off as soon as the bill is generated. If you have an actual expense come up and you don't have any funds, I mean, to be honest, the last thing you want to do is use a credit card, because 2 things. Number 1, they're going to charge you interest. And then number 2, if you don't have the funds for it, I mean, I would wonder how you're going to pay the credit card bill when it comes out. So that's going to be a late payment or a missed payment. Now, the difference is, let me clarify, because I actually believe in credit. I'm not one of those finance people that are like, go all cash, don't finance cars. That is my guilty pleasure. I have a friend that's watching that will tell you I have purchased the car every year for like 6 years straight. So I'm not one of those people that don't believe in financing. It just has to make sense. So the loophole there is that if your appliance goes out, your washing machine goes out, you have a Best Buy credit card, store card, I absolutely would say use your Best Buy card, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you 24 months, 0% interest. So what's the difference? It's literally going to be a $50 payment. You're not going to have any interest. They're going to give you 2 years to pay it off. I mean, that's what makes sense. And that's what we do even on a corporate level. Cash flow is the real thing. Even with multi-million-dollar corporations, billion-dollar corporations, Walmart, Target, those people all have credit. Why would you need credit if you're a billion-dollar corporation? Because why would you tie up all of your excess cash
all your money
in an expense that's going to take you years to get back if something were to happen? So the only time I say it's okay to use a credit card for like an expense is if you're getting 0% interest and if they're going to give you at least 12 months. Now, some people say like 6 months, 0% interest. Now, 6 months go by faster than y'all realize. We've been in COVID for 2 years. I don't believe in 6-month financing. And to be honest, most competitive store credit cards will have at least 12 months. I mean, I'm be honest. My husband and I bought our home 7 years ago. We were 22 and 23, and I financed my entire house $7,000 on Rooms to Go credit card. And I had 5 years, 60 months to pay it off interest free. And I paid it off within 3 years. And what did I lose? Absolutely nothing. So I didn't pay any extra money. It just literally gave me extra time to pay that expense off. And sometimes, you know, we don't always have $500 laying around to get a new washer or to get a new refrigerator. And so again, if it makes sense, if there's low or no interest, sometimes credit is not a bad decision.
So we got a question that came up in the chat. I left it on the screen so I didn't forget. So remember I was saying about Deanna to use those apps. Okay. So someone did ask, is it wise to use Afterpay and other similar sites? Good question, Linda. So let's see what Quanesha has to say about that.
I honestly, I've seen that everywhere, but I haven't looked into the fine print. Are they charging interest?
No.
That's it. I don't even know. And I've used it, and I don't know. I ain't never paid attention to it. It was
no, it's not. It just cuts it up. It cuts it up, but it only gives you. It charges you every 2 weeks, and it gives you the same price you paid. So if I paid $50, I'm only paying back $50, but I'm gonna be paying it $12.50. So I put $12.50 down, and then my payments are $12.50 until my $50 is fulfilled in those 4 payments. They only allow you the 1 down payment and then the other 3 payments. So they give you a line of credit, but it is not. It is no extra fee that they charge unless you use.
So they must be that day. They must be charging the fee to the vendors,
most likely. And then they have they do in the event that you like on ZipPay, if you use the credit card version where you can go in a store and do it through Apple Pay or Google Pay, they do charge you an extra $4 convenience fee for using the card. But other than that, there's no extra cost on it.
So my initial reaction to that is, if it's not charging interest, I don't see a big problem with it, but I will say it sounds like a slippery slope, because if you're using Afterpay on Fashion Nova and then you turn around and use Afterpay on Walmart, right? Next thing you know, you're gonna be done owing them people $6 or $7 a week, and that's probably most of your discretionary income. So that's one of those things where you're spending before you get it, and you don't realize how much you've spent, and then you get your check, and you're like, oh, I got $120 for my discretionary income, but you owe Afterpay and Clyde and everybody $112. Like, that leaves you as nothing.
Yeah, so, and they have no shame when they raise your balance either. So you'll pay them 2 payments, and you'll go from a $200 balance to a $600 credit amount. So now you're like, oh shoot, I can use $600 now instead of $200. And then once you pay back half of that, you pay half of that, and I got $1,000.
Like she said, it could be a slippery slope. Like she said, it could be a slippery slope.
And that's how creditors get you, y'all. I am not lying. I'm not even 30 yet. So quick. One of my credit cards got like $11,000. This is one card, has like an $11,000 limit. And I was just like, why would anybody ever need $11,000? Y'all, I'm embarrassed to say, boy, at one point I got up to that limit. Like, what are you doing with that much money? Right. So we have to be careful with that.
Right.
Even with all the sense that I got, we all fall prey to it. Ain't none of us above it. They're going to raise that limit because they know it's going to keep you coming. So I definitely say be careful with it. It's okay to use it if you can be responsible, but it's hard. It's hard, y'all, to see that money and you fall into a little COVID, or sometimes, like with me, I'm kind of like a stress eater. So some of us can be stress spenders. So let me just go buy myself a shirt to make me feel good. And there's a lot going on in the world. So it's easy to just get down in the dumps. And before you know it, you'll be done spent like $500. You don't even realize it. So definitely have to be careful there when they're increasing those limits and kind of dangling that money in your face.
Oh, yeah. Because before you know it, your limit is $1,200 and you got to pay $1,200 back in those 4 payments there, those 3 remaining payments, but you got that first initial bump. Yeah, when you done spent all the money they done gave you, and then when you pay it back, they're gonna double it up again. And now I'm looking at I can spend $4,000 in what is that? 2, 4, 6 weeks. I got 6 weeks to pay back $4,000. Bet.
So that sounds like it's gonna be more than our allocated discretionary.
You could definitely get caught up. Okay, before we hit Linda's question, I got a question that's might be a little off topic, but it's on topic. Bank accounts. So, okay, YouTube and social media guide will have you seeing 1,000 different things, and you like, oh, maybe I should try that. Maybe I should try that. How do you feel, or that you should structure your accounts? And I'm asking this question because, like, I've seen things where people have a different bank account for every bill, or when you're married, should the account be joint? Should it be separate? Should we have a joint account and then I have my own account and he have his own account? Like, in your experience, what do you see working best for your clients and things like that?
So I feel like that's a two-part question. First, I'm going to address it on an individual basis, not a marital basis. As an individual, I feel like it's okay to have no more than 3 accounts, because at that point it really can just become confusing. It can get tricky. It can get messy. So I suggest a checking account, a savings account. And if you want to have maybe a second savings for like the contingency, if you're someone who on the regular walks around with an extra $200, $300, $400 after each check, if you rarely have money left over after your check, it's no need to go open up a second checking account to have 67 cents in it. Like, just don't even waste Wells Fargo time. Don't even do it. Put your little tax money under the mattress and leave it there till you use it up next week. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't stress them people out. So I'm just throw that out there.
Don't have them in there running your credit for nothing. Trying to
don't have them people putting your name on this account, talk about you got 67 cents in it. Don't even waste your time. And so I believe no more than 3 no more than 3 accounts is good for an individual. Now, I'm gonna be honest, the topic of like marriage and what works, I say, and this might be a cop out, I truly say like experiment and find what works for you. I personally, this is my personal experience. I have a husband who is strong where he's strong, and he's perfectly fine letting his MBA, BSA, BAA wife handle the money, and that's not a problem for him. And so we have joint accounts because he has no problem sticking to a budget. But I know that a lot of people have separate accounts, and to me it's more of a trust factor. So I'm never gonna say like one is bad or one is good. You have to definitely do what works for you. If you do choose to have separate accounts, I mean, you obviously want to make sure that your expenses are going to be covered regardless of which account that they're coming from. So I got to cop out here and say that I don't have a real do this, do that. For me and my husband, we have no problem having joint accounts because we both like to be responsible. So that's all I got.
So in your practice, like in your business, do you find that most married couples have joint accounts, or most married couples have separate accounts?
No, I honestly, I'm a millennial, but I'm like old at heart. I really just feel like people have trust issues. Marriages don't last long these days. No, from what I find, most people have separate accounts. And I feel like that's weird. If you're going to share your body and soul with somebody, how can you not trust them enough to share your account with them? But that's just,
not this episode. Not this
episode. No, that's another episode.
That's another episode.
That's why I said it was a little off, but it was still on.
I know. That's why I'm just like, I'm trying to keep it politically correct.
That girl said if you're going to give somebody your body and soul,
but you can't share money. Like, so that's just my opinion. I don't understand how you can trust somebody with your life or trust somebody to lead you, but you can't trust them to be financially responsible. I personally wouldn't be with somebody that I had that struggle with, and that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Okay, good. I'm glad we touched on that.
Fair enough. Okay.
So
put that on the document. That's a good conversation for later.
We talk about that in part 2. Great conversation. Oh yeah. So Linda's question was, what do you think about investing? I think that's a broad question, but I'll just let you answer it however you feel.
I do think it's broad, and I'm gonna be honest. We got a whole bunch of laws. The SEC regulates things. I do not have a Series 7 for investing. I am not authorized to give y'all any type of investing advice. But I mean, to be honest, I think that investing is great. It can be a great tool, but we don't want to put the cart before the horse. Make sure I say it right. Okay. If you feel like you're in a place where you want to invest, what that means is you have an established budget, you have an established savings account that is able to cover 3 to 6 months of your expenses should something happen to you, right? We're not walking around with $200 in our checking account saying that we're ready to invest. We need to have a solid savings account, because the thing with investments is, again, they are regulated just like your checking account. It is not considered a liquid investment, meaning if your house was to, well, that's a big broad. If your car was to break down, you are not about to liquidate your investments within a day or two to get the money that you need to cover your emergency expenses. Yeah. So investing is amazing if you know what you're capable of financially. But you need to make sure that you're really like at a level 4. Like level 4, I got my budget, I stick to my budget, I have my great savings account. Now I'm ready. You're basically saying I have XYZ dollars that I don't need. This is what I'm doing with it. You have to, with investing, you have to say like, this is money I could never see. This is money that I'm not gonna need within the next year, 2, 3, whatever. And with investing, you really have to be prepared to stick it out for the long haul. I'm gonna be honest. One of the stocks I invested in, I followed my husband, and I got in on the Dogecoin thing. And I must have got in on the tail end because I just checked, and I done lost like 60% of my value with that stupid little Dogecoin. And the value done went down. So I say that to say that with investing, that's money that you have to know you might not get back. And then that's money that you have to be prepared to stick it out for the long haul. Because guess what? I'm not going to sell now that my stock is down. Baby, I'm going to wait till that go back up. That might be 3 recessions from now, but it's going to sit there for them 3, you know what I'm saying? So it might sit there for 10 years before it makes my value back. So again, when you're investing, that's money that you have to be prepared to not use, not need anytime soon. Oh, and if you feel like you're ready to take that step, what is it? I have my app, but let me see if I can go to it. Robinhood. That's what that's something simple that I use. You can read about it. They prepare any tax documents that you need. They make it super easy. I know there's an app called Acorn that some people like. You can like invest in change. And so that's like beginner investing that you can kind of dibble and dabble in if you think that you're
help you learn. Yeah.
Right.
So what do you think about Mint though? Like for the person who's trying to start a budget, right? So I just recently signed up for like a Mint thing, and I'm going to let them do that assessment on my account so I can see how terrible I really am, because I'm pretty bad. So I want to get started somewhere. Do you suggest starting with something like Mint to let them assess like where your money's going?
So wait, before she suggests, can I share my Mint experience?
Share your Mint.
I'm scared.
My husband and I have been signed up for Mint, I want to say like since 2012. And basically what it does is you set your budget, you link all your bank accounts, and it tracks every transaction. So this is better for somebody who uses their card for everything. And you can put your debt on there, and it tracks you paying down your debt. Like, to me, it's a great tool, but it can be overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And I know for me, I just look at my Mint account and cry and be like, why can't I figure this out? Because I'm over in every budget, and then it's one that don't get touched.
Wait a minute.
Like, I'm continually updating and adjusting it just to be like, let me just write it down on a piece of paper because it's too much.
Listen, I set up that Mint thing and plugged in one account, plugged it in, and when it told me how much extra or my food budget, or I was like, how?
Yes.
How, Sway? How?
Yeah.
I'm like, how? I'm looking at it like how much of the circle is being taken up by
by something that
if you look at the actual circle, I'm like, oh, when it gave me back my categories and I saw the $ and the number following it, I was like, oh, that's bad.
I think it's good for showing you what you actually are doing with your money.
Yeah.
But now, if you don't take from it, but go ahead. A question for Quanesha. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you shared that, because honestly, that was going to be my my statement, is that I'm in finance. I deal with numbers all day, and I don't want to go look at Mint. I'm gonna be honest. It can be very overwhelming. If that's what you're looking for, great. But for somebody that's just starting, and like particularly the clients that I work with, I have a passion for like financial literacy and really establishing the basics. For somebody that's never stuck to a budget, or somebody that doesn't even know what a budget is, Mint is going to be way too much. You're going to get a headache. It's going to be a lot to digest. So I don't recommend Mint usually, unless again, you have a specific reason for looking at that. And maybe it's a wake-up call for you to say, oh, wow, I really spend that much. So maybe Mint can help you in that aspect. But if you're someone that's really wanting to like establish a budget and do your best to stick to it, I don't recommend the Mint app. And that's one of the reasons, again, why I usually suggest that my clients use Excel, because it's super basic. We're adding, we're subtracting. Like we gonna get this down before we start trying to take percentages and divide and what's our debt to income and all that stuff. Yeah. So Mint is great if you can digest it, but we're not gonna, eat steak and we don't have any teeth.
Okay.
Wow. So at what age do you think that somebody should start considering retirement savings accounts?
You need a retirement savings account if you're working. So if you can work at 16, you should probably have a retirement savings account. I think that sometimes it's hard for us because, like even with me, my first couple of jobs out of college, I was just like, I got kids, I gotta pay for daycare. I don't really have no extra money to give to a retirement account. But when you do take this step and when you do feel like you have an extra $40, $50, whatever you have to give to a retirement account, you should start as soon as possible. And one of the fun parts about retirement savings is that if your company uses an outside source like a Fidelity or whatever, they'll usually show you packages based on your age. So they'll say like, I'm 29, you have 34 years to retirement. Here's how much you need to put up each month to meet this minimum, right? And so the closer you are to retirement, the more money you're going to need to contribute. So the sooner you start, the sooner, or I'll say the less you need to get started. If you're starting at 16, $20 goes a long way because you have to think that they're going to invest that for 40 years, right? And that's going to be compounded interest on compounded interest. If you're not starting until you're 40, well, now you only got 20 years to do what you could have been doing for the last 25 years. So I think that if you are old enough to work, you are old enough to have a retirement. And it's the same as with savings. There is no, this is what you need to give. Like, you should just give whatever you're able to give until you're able to do more. If you can't put $100 up for retirement, start with $20, start with $15. If I told y'all what I contributed to my retirement, you'd probably be like, oh, that's it. But it works for me, and I got a long work life ahead of me.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we are about wrapping up. We're getting close to the end. So I wanted Quanesha to be able to tell us how to get to her website, what products you offer, what should be our first step, yada, yada, yada.
Yes. So you can find me and follow me on Instagram, budget_smudget. You can follow my Facebook page, Budget Smudget LLC. And then I have a website, Budget Smudget. You can also email me, budgetsmudget@outlook.com. Products that I offer. So one of the basic things that I offer is just a budget template, right? So this is like, if you feel like I can do the numbers and stuff myself, or I have an idea of what I need, just give me the template, right? So this is going to have formulas and such in it for you. It's going to have every expense that you can think of listed in there. And that's something that you can find on my website. And then the next step that I offer is if you're like, okay, I need the numbers to talk to me, I really need somebody to hold my hand. I have a step-by-step, a DIY budget, because if you're like, I don't want you in my business, there's also a DIY budget where you get the template, you get a video, you can create the budget whenever you want to create it with my pre-recorded guidance. And then there's what I like to call coaching, and that's just like, here, I don't want to do this, you do this, and then just keep me on track, right? So that's that's me holding your hand. I create the budget with you. I check in with you bi-weekly. If you're just like, okay, I'm feeling really bad, I had a rough week, and it's like, okay, we can talk about it. We're not gonna beat ourselves up over it. So that's me coaching, motivating, encouraging, keeping you on track. Those are like the 3 tiers that I offer on a personal level. There's some other stuff on my website. I also offer some business services. I do teach workshops. I do courses. And so, yeah.
Awesome. That is amazing. That is really amazing.
Oh, I have to plug one thing.
Go ahead.
This year I started a quarterly workshop, and I had my first one in January, and the other was yesterday. So the Q3 workshop is going to be in June, and we are going to jot down all of our expenses for July, August, September. Yep. July, August, and September. And just work our way through budget. So you're basically doing a year's budget, but every 3 months. And so tickets for those will be on sale, and you can follow my Instagram page for more information.
Awesome.
Wow. That is impressive, to say the least. That is impressive, to say the least. So if you have been following us for any length of time, you know we were on our road to 100 subscribers, right? Well, we did a giveaway for that, which we called the Big 10 giveaway. And the way that you entered was to follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share the post, and then just simply comment done. Now, we are thrilled to let you know that we hit those 100 subscribers, okay? We are thrilled to let you know we hit those 100 subscribers. So in true Melanin Mindset form, we have to keep our word. So we're going to go ahead and spin the wheel real quick for a giveaway this evening. And then we're going to come back and let you know what to expect next week. And we're going to check in with you on your thoughts on this financial building blocks. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see what happens. Well, alrighty then. It looks like we have a winner. Y'all give it up one time for Quita LaShawn. She was the winner of our Big 10 giveaway. So Quita LaShawn, if you'll inbox us, we'll let you know what you've won. All right. So inbox us, Quita, and we'll let you know what you've won. So congratulations to her on the Big 10 giveaway. So that you are fully aware, we do still have t-shirts on pre-sale, and you can actually go online and purchase them now. So friend, if you'll go ahead and drop that in the chat for the people, www.themelanatedmindset.net will link you directly to placing your order for a Melanin Mindset official Mindset family member t-shirt. It'll allow you to purchase your pre-order for an official Melanin Mindset t-shirt. And we go from extra small all the way up to 5X. Yes, y'all. Extra small all the way up to 5X. So go ahead and place your orders for that today. And the last thing that I have to say before we close this thing out is next week, we have Melanin Hair Health featuring Kimberly Jenkins, a Ballman certified hair coach. All right. She is a certified trichologist. She has schooled us on so much in this preparation for her episode. So please tune in with us next week, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, to see Kimberly Jenkins and ask all your hair questions. So if you got concerns about your hair doing some strange things, if you want to hear about the heritage in which we have built these issues with our hair.
I see what you did there.
Tune in with us next week, okay? Tune in with us next week, and you'll be able to see Kim Jenkins. I almost call her Kim Bowman. Kim Jenkins sharing with us about that. So stay tuned for the outro, though, because if you pause when you see Quanesha come up on the screen, you'll be able to grab all of her contact information, and you want that because Quanesha's amazing, and she's schooled us tonight. So hopefully we can get her to come back around. Let us know down below. Go ahead and comment if you'd like to see her come back through and talk with us a little bit more about financial building blocks and how we as a community can just do better. Before we go, Quanesha, would you like to give them a tip of the week?
What month is this? March, spring break. All right. So the tip of the week is, if you went all out last week for spring break, stay home and do some indoor activities with the kids this weekend. That can be the park. It can be board games. We're going to keep it simple and recoup those funds.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. So recoup your funds in the month of March at the word of Quanesha James, who joined us. Again, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really enjoyed having you.
Thank you.
We got some yeses coming in, girl. We're going to have to run this back. We got some yeses coming in.
All right.
So, yes. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and kick the outro. Don't forget to hit that pause button if you're interested in grabbing Quanesha's contact information. Have a great night, everyone. Friend, you got anything?
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
All right. Good night, y'all.
Bye.